Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Palace podcast. I'm Joe Lodge. I've taken to wearing a helmet in public in case I encounter any Millwall goalkeepers. There's been an inexplicable increase at the same time in people asking me if I know where I am, if I have anyone to take me home, and if I can point them to the nearest velodrome, but my head remains attached to my shoulders. With me today is a man whose head is always firmly on his shoulders, Wale Bakari. How are you doing, Wale?
I'm all right, Joe. Great to see you. It was some weekend of FA Cup games. The Palace game was the result somewhat overshadowed by that. I was about to say that attack on Mateta by the goalkeeper, but I don't know. It's just you really wish you don't see tackles like that in football, but they tend to happen a couple of times.
Yeah, so we'll get into all of that in a moment. As Wale says, today our plan is to talk about Palace's 3-1 FA Cup win over South London rivals Millwall that puts the Eagles through to the quarterfinals. Also, the horrendous tackle on John-Philippe Mateta for Millwall's goalkeeper, Liam Roberts. Possibly one of the worst challenges professional sport has ever seen. And then we'll wrap up by talking about Palace's FA Cup quarterfinal draw with Fulham and how the competition looks as a whole from here. But let's start with the horrible bit. John-Philippe Mateta was treated for 10 minutes on the pitch after he was kicked in the head by Millwall's Liam Roberts in the early part of the match. He was given oxygen, stretched off the pitch and taken straight to hospital, where he had to receive 25 stitches, having suffered a severe laceration on his ear. Another Palace figure, Steve Parrish, experienced a rush of blood to rather than from the head and gave an interview to Sky Sports at halftime in which he called it the most reckless challenge he's ever seen. Is he right, Wale? Was it that bad?
It was that bad. It was a reckless challenge. Whether it's the most reckless challenge I've ever seen. Trust me, I've seen worse on the Nigerian streets, with boys playing football and just going out to harm themselves sometimes. But more seriously, it was a very reckless challenge. It was quite similar to, remember Luke de Jong in the World Cup final in South Africa, Spain against the Netherlands, and he just planted his studs on Xabi Alonso's chest. But I think it would be more hurtful and more dangerous if it's the head, than the chest. But I've seen videos on YouTube of some horrendous tackles in football games. So, but as far as games that I've watched and followed are concerned, it has to be one of the most reckless tackles I've seen. I'm glad that Mateta is fine and well. Hopefully, he recovers, sufficiently, and he's able to get back on the pitch as quickly as possible. A lot of things have happened after the game. A lot of talks as regards whether the ban should be extended. There's also been talks of the man Liam Roberts getting some abuse, which as understandable as it is, especially with football fans, even smaller things rather get warrant abuse from some football fans. It's not very nice. I'm sure he's in a very difficult place as well, mentally and all of that. And we've had a lot of footballers come out to say very few footballers go into a challenge intending to hurt the opponent or, looking to cause very serious damage. Although when you watch that tackle on Saturday, it did feel like that, but I don't see why, you would want to, hurt Mateta. It was a situation of, in a split second, he's made a very, very, very foolish decision to go for the ball with his studs. Mateta has made the brave decision to try to get to the ball, and it could have been worse actually when you look at it to some extent, because I
Yes,
was,
at least he sort of turns his head away.
yeah, and I was really glad to see him at least. It was one of those tackles where the player just collapses and you just don't see any movement. I was glad to see Mateta move a bit. Maybe that is because he's a big man himself, but you know, I'm sure some other players might not have coped so well as
Yeah,
Mateta did. It was very very reckless, quite all right. I don't think I would want to believe what we've heard footballers say. I don't think the goalkeeper would went into that challenge intending to have that kind of reckless impact as he did. Although you would argue, what else did he expect? Going
yeah,
all out like that. I'm just glad Mateta is fine. It's sad that the goalkeeper is then has then had to be subjected to the amount of abuse that we hear he's been subjected to. Whether his ban will be extended, we will wait to see. I'm sure now there's this talks of the abuse that he's had to go through as well. I would suspect that will then be taken into consideration maybe when a decision is being looked into as regards whether the ban should be extended. But it's also nice to hear that he apologized or spoke to Mateta later in the day. Mateta accepted his apologies. Mateta is fine. Hopefully, he will recover quickly enough. But yeah, it was very very reckless, that challenge.
yeah. But you're more mature than me. While I was going to call him and
No.
send him
If you asked me the same question on Saturday, you probably would have gotten a different answer.
No, I'm only joking. I think, listen, reckless is the word, isn't it? Reckless absolutely is the word. We understand how it happened. He's come rushing out to clear a ball, pumped full of adrenaline. He's played, he should know better. He's played 200 odd professional games in the EFL. He's not a whippersnapper, but he's probably not playing a game of this magnitude before, really. Usually it's slightly, sort of League One, League Two level. And it's a derby, tensions are high. He's come rushing out and tried to. The only thing he can do to rectify his mistake is just put his foot through the ball as hard as possible to get it out with Mateta and his own defender. He could easily have caught, bearing down on him at full pelt, but it's unbelievably reckless. Really, it's almost jousting. People running at each other at top speed and then extending a pointed edge towards them. It's the physics of that are pretty brutal. There's a reason we don't joust anymore. So it is pretty silly. I do buy that he's really upset. That seems to be what everyone's saying, and I do feel bad for him. And he shouldn't be subjected to abuse. But obviously, maybe Steve Parrish is right that it's the most reckless challenge he's in for a while. It's not the worst in some ways, because the worst challenges you get feel calculated and malicious and not kind of out of control like that. So it might be more outstandingly reckless than horrendous another way, but I think he'll only have himself to blame and really won't have a leg to stand on if the FA do decide to extend the ban, although I suspect they won't. I feel like that's fairly unusual for
Is it going to get three? Is there a 3-match ban? It will get for the red card. Yeah,
3 matches are standard. I suspect they'll stick with that. I can't really think. I might be wrong. Any refereeing fans, feel free to at us and explain why I've got this completely wrong. But I think you usually only see big extensions when they feel like there's a level of kind of malice and deliberateness in it. I don't think you certainly can't prove that. I think most evidence point to that it wasn't maliciously intended, like it is horrendously reckless. So I don't think you can complain.
It's one of those. It could, to be honest, if someone looked at it and says, "I'm extending the ban," you also wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. Yeah.
But yeah, John-Philippe Mateta, we wish him the best, speediest recovery. Hope he's feeling healthy soon. Speaking of that, time for a morally onerous potentially segue into our a word from our sponsors, Bioniq, who can help you feeling as healthy as possible, as quickly as possible.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
So getting into details of the actual match, it was a sort of semi-comfortable win for Palace in the end. They scored 2 goals in the 33rd and 40th minute before Millwall pulled one back against the run of play on the stroke at half-time. The second half was a bit more dull. It's a bit more a case of Palace gradually breaking Millwall down, one of those attritional kind of performances, but John-Philippe Mateta's replacement, Eddie Nketiah, secures the win with a header in the 81st minute. What do you think of Palace's performance there, Wale? Good value for the win? Is it, were they particularly good? Were Millwall particularly bad? Did they have to dig deep for John-Philippe Mateta off? What are your thoughts?
No, it was a pretty comfortable result for Palace, and one thing that I don't know whether has been mentioned enough is the fact that after the Mateta injury, we should also talk about the psychological impact he would have on his teammates. After he's gone out, but they've gone on, carried out their jobs professionally. Some great performances from players that have been doing well in the last couple of weeks, and again, Eddie Nketiah getting a goal for himself after his first Premier League goal the other day. We spoke about an opportunity for him to get a run of games. We don't know how long Mateta will be out for, if he will be out for long, whether that will be an opportunity for Nketiah to get a run of games, although in very, very sad circumstances. But overall, it was a good result. I was saying to Dan the other day when we're talking about the last round of the FA Cup, and I said that particularly with the FA Cup, there's no such thing as a game you should win. Liverpool manager Arne Slot was saying, "Oh, Plymouth is a game we should win." Yeah, but then it's the FA Cup again. We know that those giant killings happen in the FA Cup, so Millwall could easily have, gotten a victory against Crystal Palace, and it wouldn't still be a surprise. It would just fall into the category of, a lesser ranked team has come and defeated a Premier League side. But it was a game that could get tricky for Palace, particularly after the injury to Eddie Nketiah as well. I mean, to John-Philippe Mateta as well. But they went on about their job professionally. It was a relatively comfortable game. I cannot remember a game where Palace had more ball possession. It was about 74-75%, I think. And that's not something that happens very often. What we know of Palace is try to soak up the pressure, eat on the attack, on the counter attack, and get a result. But they were, the bigger side of the two, at least at the moment, playing at home. So they went on and did the job, and it was a good game to watch. It was a great performance. You could pick out some individual great performances, but overall for the team, good result, and it's good that the run of form continues.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. The point about the psychological impact is worth raising of that Mateta injury. I think you could really get a sense of that from Glasner's press conference after the game, where he kind of struggled to speak about the win and the match, even though actually it should be quite excited. It's it's a result where they were heavy favourites going in, but nevertheless it's a local derby and a win that puts them through to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and that's always cause for celebration. But it was so overshadowed by I think the gruesome nature of the injury, isn't it? Because probably Mateta's not. We don't really know yet, but he's not going to be out for as long, I would think, as if he just sort of pulled up out of nowhere or someone tackled him a bit heavily and he'd done his ACL. But it's the feeling of assault and being very physically damaged, and that is, it is rattling and upsetting. So I think it did well to overcome that. And as you say, it is good to see Palace finding solutions when they have to be the ball dominant team, finding ways to break Millwall down. I think they were aided by some slightly poor defending by Millwall at times in that. Obviously, what springs to mind is Jaffet Senganga's header. It's a lovely cross from Will Hughes, but I think Jaffet Senganga's a pretty decent centre back, but he probably should be aware that there's no one behind him. There's no one following the ball in. He's not really under any pressure, so he does not need to just turn the ball back into his own net like that. It's not brilliant defending in that case. And there's also no one springs to mind. There's a chance that Chilwell had not long before the first goal, and that one was again just quite. It was enabled again by a great Will Hughes pass, but also a poor defensive line from Millwall that you don't see so much at the higher level. Nevertheless, so Palace did find other tools in their armoury to break them down. I think the set pieces were on point again, and that's become a real feature of Palace's game this season. So that first goal, the own goal, comes from a set piece. And then Munoz's goal comes from maybe not a set piece, but the same kind of fundamental principles of they sort of flood the box, get physical, and capitalise when the ball breaks loose. So if you can do those things, that's it is encouraging for Palace pushing on to a point where if their form continues, they might not be able to counter-attack against every team. People might not fancy pushing on against them as much as they have, and they need to find other alternative routes to goal. And I think we saw a few potentials on display there, so that was definitely encouraging. Did any particular players stand out for you? Well, I mentioned Nketiah already, but who else sprung to mind?
Yeah, Nketiah getting the goal and coming in and getting that goal was great for him, but Daniel Munoz, had a great game. It's been putting in some wonderful performances in the last couple of weeks. Got another goal. It must have scored about 5 goals already. Competitions this season, he tends to always find himself in just those areas where the opportunities fall to him. Chris Richards in the defense was steady, and for some reason of the back line, it was the best of the three, which because it was a bit surprising. It usually would be Lacroix or Gay, but Richards on the day was just phenomenal. And maybe this is as a result of the fact that he's now getting back to form after the injuries of the start of the season, the uncertainties as to was the third person after Lacroix and Gay. He's gotten the nod, especially after Chalobah left for a number of games now. So that run is definitely getting the benefit of that run of games, and he was just great against Millwall. So he was actually the best player on the pitch for me. So Richards, Munoz, Eze, of course, had a good game. We were seeing him, those drop of the shoulder moves that we know him for. Going at defenders that we know he's able to do. We're seeing that get back into his game, and those were largely the best performance in the game. But as I said, everyone put a good shift in. Like Kwake, Will Hughes were also great in the game. But if top performance has to be Richard Munoz and maybe Eze for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good selection. Rich is a good one to highlight. As you say, putting a good shift all around. He also, I think did really well in. I realised set piece goal I forgot to mention was Nketiah's when it came in, and came from a deep free kick from Eze, didn't it? And he does really well nodding the ball back across goal for Nketiah to put his head on. I think, to name a couple of others, Nketiah, as you already mentioned, was really good. He put himself about really well. He looked eager to seize the opportunity that the dark evil forces had afforded him to lead the line for Palace, which he doesn't often get, and he did well. He, if you're looking for negatives, he had 45% pass completion, so I don't think Barcelona are going to come knocking anytime soon. But he got like 5 shots off, won 6 of 9 aerial duels, which I was really impressed by. 3 of 5 ground duels. Really sort of a surprisingly physical performance from him as the main striker, which is encouraging that he can fill Mateta's role without Glasner having to make as many tactical compromises as you might have thought. It was kind of, he was able to play a bit as a target man, which I think is a pleasant surprise just for a smaller striker like Nketiah. And yeah, but he did really well. So all credit to him. Not really easy to come on in those circumstances. Gehi, I think, also did well. I agree Richards maybe the standout defence, but Palace's performance was really built on, they were able to dominate Millwall because of the supreme comfort of their defenders on the ball. And that was more true of Gehi than anyone else. I think he played well over 100 passes in the match, which is outstanding for Palace to have a player who is capable of doing that from the days of Scott Dann and Damien Delaney not so long ago. For them to have a centre back now who's able to dictate a game like that is really indicative of kind of the growth where they've gone to. Hughes was great again, more incisive passes from him. Perhaps Palace's most creative player in the first half at least. And I thought Chilwell was encouraging. 90 minutes under his belt, got up and down, took up some good positions. Probably should have scored, but nevertheless it was a very good run into the space to get there. And yeah, I mean, just being able to get 90 minutes in his legs in a derby in quite a physical game is very encouraging for Palace. But I think with that, we'll wrap up our discussion of the South London derby and move on to a chat about Palace's upcoming fixture with London's second most violent team after Millwall, Fulham, and how the rest of the tournament's going to shape up, but only after we've had a word from our sponsor.
Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
So Palace will be playing Fulham in the quarterfinal away at Craven Cottage after they saw off Manchester United on penalties in their round of 16 tie. How do you feel about that draw, Wale? Is it favourable, unfavourable? You kind of happy with that from a Palace perspective, based on what else was in the pot, what other combinations could have come up?
Well, the only other, or the easiest, would have been Preston, just by the virtue of the fact that they're not in the Premier League. Every other team is in the Premier League. Palace already have beaten Aston Villa this season. Already got a draw against Manchester City. Lost 1 and won 1 against Fulham. I think Palace beat Brighton as well. I can't remember now, but Preston would have been the easiest of the lot in the pot. But when you go by recent form, Palace just a couple of weeks ago beat Fulham at the Craven Cottage. So maybe they can take that belief into that game. And when you look at the fact that even in the Premier League, away games have been easier for Palace, so it's totally fine that the game is happening away. Incidentally, I did say I didn't see a lot of football during the weekend. Fulham United game was one that I saw, uh, which of course I started watching when it was 1-0 to Fulham because I enjoy United suffering. But shortly after they got the equalizer, but Fulham were good in the game. They were they've dropped off a bit from what they've done in the start at the start of the season, but they're having a fantastic season so far, Fulham. For a lot of the teams in the quarterfinal, a cup run is something that they will be excited about. Palace, Fulham, Brighton, even Preston, Manchester City, of course, are used to getting to the final of the FA Cup. They will be having a tricky game against Bournemouth away, by the way. So it could have been worse, could have been easier with Preston maybe, but then it's still the FA Cup. You could get Preston and still get knocked out. But, Fulham away, judging by, Palace's current form, wouldn't be too bad, although the games will be played on the 29th. That's, 3 weeks from now. So if the form persists until that time, I will be very confident. But it would be nice, for the team to get a Wembley date. It would be nice overall to get to the final, maybe win the cup would be really great. But it does look like a good fixture for Palace, and I'm quite confident that they can get the job done against Fulham.
Yeah, I think it's okay for them as a draw, isn't it? It's quite hard to call. They're well-matched teams, sort of similar veins of form, probably going to finish the season in similar positions, and probably with similar strengths and weaknesses, really. I'd say they're both difficult to play against, good defensive units, can cause problems in sort of attacking transitions and stuff like that, but not the most inspired attacking units. So I think it'll be close. Based on what we've seen of Fulham and Palace this season, they're incredibly well matched. There's not much to go off one way or the other. What at Selhurst, Palace lost 2-0 to Fulham. Fulham were fairly comfortable, and then a couple of weeks ago at Craven Cottage, Fulham lost 2-0 to Palace, and Palace were fairly comfortable. So, if anything, we can conclude from that the winning team is the away team, and Palace are on their way to an FA Cup semi-final. But it's one you can really see kind of a bit cagey, going to penalties, not much to separate them. But that's all right. That's not the worst result at all. Depending on where you look at the time of recording, worth bearing in mind that Forest Ipswich hasn't been played yet as we're recording this. Palace are either sort of fifth or sixth favourites. Sky have them sixth as outright FA Cup winners, behind City, Villa, Brighton, Fulham and Bournemouth. Is that fair, or is that underestimating Palace's chances a little bit?
Well, yeah, maybe, but you'd understand that is going off Premier League places and the performance in some of the big games. Bournemouth are having a great season. City, of course, are City. Aston Villa, they are in the Champions League. They've got Emery who understands how to navigate cup games, but they lost in the Carabao Cup to Palace. So yeah, you would understand it, but I'm sure it would have been close calls, between 4, 5, 6 in the rankings. But it's sometimes good to be the lower ranked side and least expected to win and be the underdog. That sometimes pushes you on. Hopefully, it does that for Palace.
Yes, yeah, it certainly is. I think it's. I mean, I'm sure it's fair. The bookmakers tend to know what they're doing, really, don't they? They're probably right, but I'm slightly offended from Palace' point of view at the fact they have Bournemouth ahead and City as favourites. That feels like you can't. They can't surely think that Bournemouth are more likely to. No, it's not as simple as that. But they can't think that Bournemouth are more likely to beat City than Palace are to beat Fulham, surely. Or if they do, why are City favourites? It feels offensive to me. It feels like that is writing Palace off too early. Too early, surely. But speaking of things that aren't really early, kind of bang on time, I think it's probably time for us to wrap the podcast up today. So thank you very much, Wale, for joining me.
Cheers, Joe. Always nice, talking. I just saw the bit of Wayne Rooney talking about Ruben Amorim's comments, saying he was naive and all of that. And I'm thinking, Rooney's been a manager a couple of times. It's been horrible at it so far. I don't get what happens when, although, if you become a pundit and you get asked a question, you get to answer it. But I just wonder whether, they forget what they've done when they've been given the chance. But by all accounts, Amorim is like Sir Alex Ferguson level to Wayne Rooney at the moment. But that's fine.
I think you're forgetting about his great achievements, nearly keeping Derby in the Championship there. Well, that's got to buy him some credit still.
Well, they're bottom of the Championship now, anyway.
Oh, well, yeah.
I guess Rooney is still hunting them.
Plymouth have improved. We're both wearing Plymouth green today, actually. But they've improved a lot since Rooney left, which is never a great sign. Well, hey, let's hope he doesn't get anywhere near the Palace dugout anytime soon.
No, I'll be running straight to London myself.
Right, well, if you've enjoyed listening this far, please give us a 5-star review. It helps us get discovered. And basically, we'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, I think all there is to say is goodbye for now.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Oh, shit.